Hey everybody, welcome to a conversation on Isaiah. We're in week 8 and we're specifically looking at Isaiah 55. It's the come to the waters moment.
I love that. I love the come. I like the connections that are made to the New Testament too, like Isaiah 55.
Wow, we're just going straight in.
Well,
No fun or anything.
I know, but nobody wants to have fun anymore but me. So I'm like, I have to let go and just be serious now.
No, it's fine.
I'm serious all the time. No, it's too late. I already got it.
It's too late?
Yeah.
It's too late.
So the first verse. Oh, okay. So the first verse, it's like, come all who are thirsty. I'm just ignoring you. Come to the waters. And who have no money, come buy and eat. Buy wine and milk without money and without cost. And then we connect it to Matthew 11:28 to 30. Jesus call to come. And it's come to me again, all who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. And I think like I'm talking fast now because I'm pushing through. Push back. Okay. But that similar verse every week, I don't know if it's just been Isaiah or maybe in Haggai too. Like we've had some similar verses of coming to the water or coming to find rest, or, like even in 40 when it was like, I will give you energy and I'll give you, maybe he doesn't even use the words energy, but in Haggai, he talks about that too with, who was the guy in Haggai that was
Haggai?
building? No, it wasn't Haggai. He was the prophet. Yes, thank you. But like he was that when he was obedient to what God called him to, he was. There is a cord.
It's fine.
When he was obedient to what God called him to, he said he was going to give him the energy to do it. And so I feel like this verse for me has been repeatedly brought me, not today, I guess, but brought me to tears. Like, I know. Well, maybe. Maybe.
No way.
I know. Shocking. But do you guys feel that at all? Or is it just me and maybe the season of life I'm in right now? Like, that, come to me that you're burdened, I'll give you rest. Is that just me? No?
No,
Richard?
rest is good.
Rest is good?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Not you?
I think...
I don't know.
Okay, sorry.
I don't think that this verse specifically comes into my brain all the time, but there are moments where I'm just like, okay, too much. Gotta intentionally take time to step back and take that rest. And I think that it's there and we can trust that it's there, but we need to take that step. Being able to, it's not just like, oh, sit there.
Yeah.
I'll give you rest. It's like, all right.
There's a process.
Take the step. Come over here.
Yeah. I like that because I think I read these verses and I go, how do I do that? Like, how do I find rest? And like, what does this look like? But even in Isaiah 40, what was the verse? No, I'm lost. But it talked about needing rest. And then it said, it was another invitation moment, like come to me and I will give you rest, or I'm going to find it. I know this
Do you
is
think it's like I think it's really interesting that when it's talking about rest here, it's not it's not active. It's like a gift. It's something that is given to you.
Mm-hmm.
And so for me, the way I think about it is it's similar to God's peace. Chaos of life is all around you. There's really nothing you can do about it, unfortunately. But you can still have peace and you can still have rest in the midst of that.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't actually think it means stopping doing things.
No, I don't either.
Taking a break or any of those things. I think it's to some degree, almost like the state of mind that is available. Life is so much easier, is lack of a better term, in the midst of chaos when you have trust in God.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, well, at least I know it's not all going to be chaotic. And it's an invitation, and which means we have the option to do it or not, take it up on it or not. Do you guys like being invited to things?
Sometimes.
It depends.
Yeah,
It depends.
it does. It does depend.
What are the depends?
What are the depends?
Those are old people diapers, if you're wondering.
I think it's, if I want to do it or not. Like, if someone invites me to rebuild a bathroom or tile the corner coffee. I'm not as excited about that. I mean, not just because it's painful work, but because I'm not great at it.
If it's a new corner coffee, I'm excited.
Yes, that's true. But I think I get stressed in those moments because I know I don't know what I'm doing. And there's some people that are like, know how to do it and are intense when they do it. And I don't know who those people are, but like there's some people, and in that moment I'm like, like I know I'm gonna screw it up, and I don't love that. But
I think I'm on one end of the extreme of even if it's something I want to do, just the fact of being invited. There's something in me that doesn't. I don't want to be invited, which is a bummer.
Oh, that's funny.
Like I want to be, yes. But I don't want to be.
You're still the cool kid. You're still like I don't want to be where everybody else is. Well, like if everybody wants to do it, I'm not going to do
it. He's reverse Little Mermaid. He doesn't want to be where the people are.
Well, that's like my favorite song,
which also makes it hard for me. Like
reverse Little Mermaid.
It's made me hard to be a good inviter to anything.
Yeah.
Disagree.
Yeah.
And I'm going to tie it into this.
It's great.
I think, for me, the invitation from someone who knows me, because I won't get invited to something stupid. Now, or just like something that I don't want to do, or something that it's like, I would not enjoy that at all.
Yeah.
Like, why?
Why would you invite me?
Now you put this obligation on me to respond to it.
And that's it. Obligation.
But when you know someone, like, someone who knows me could come up and go, hey, we're going to go to Smash Burger down the street. And I'd be like, yes, because I love Smash Burgers. But if you know someone else and you know who they are and how they do things, then you understand them. You go, I'm going to go do this. People can come if they want to, but I'm going to go do it. And that is a Greg invitation.
That is a Greg invitation.
Yeah.
So
I think part of it too is I like being invited. I don't want anyone to not invite me because they're
from now on.
I know, me
too. I enjoy it, but I always have a gut reaction of negative when I get invited, and it's because I plan so much of my day and my life, and like what's going to happen.
I get that. Mm-hmm.
So it's not a frustration or like, don't invite me. It's okay. I need to take a second and rework in my mind how the day is going to work or how the week is going to work, and it causes me to respond poorly to invitations sometimes because you can invite me and be like, I don't know. And it's not me saying I don't want to or not excited. It's me saying, I got to figure this out myself first.
Yeah. Well, and I think too, like what I struggle with being invited, in similar to what you said, our schedules are pretty flexible, but there's calendar. Like there's lots of to-dos and lots of lists. But because of that flexibility, it almost gives me no reason to say no. Except for like healthy boundaries, which I'm not saying I have healthy boundaries, but I do have a hard time saying no if I know I can move something around to make it work. But then I also know I'm going to like have to squeeze in like other areas. And that's hard for me. That like, I feel like that makes me feel the tension. Like, how am I going to make all this work?
I always try to schedule further out in the future if possible. Yeah. Like someone's like, we should get together. I'm like, yes. What are you doing next week?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
that's usually my standard.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yes,
because like I just don't do same day changes very well, which is
I do them too well.
Of me.
My weakness is I'm like sure.
Well, I just want to be prepared for every meeting.
Yeah,
and so I need time to prepare.
And that's good. I'm glad you have that in you. I'll be sitting like. There's been a couple of times where I ran into my cousin here, who I love, and I will never say no to a conversation with her. And I'm so excited to like run into her. And then I know too that like I'm gonna have to change things up, but I'm not gonna say no to like a conversation with a person. Sometimes that gets me in trouble.
Yeah. Let's go back to the water. You were describing.
Yes.
Thirsty.
Okay.
So the invitation here in Isaiah 55, God's like. Or Isaiah's like, come to the water, all who are thirsty. What does it mean to be thirsty? What does thirst represent?
I mean, I think it's just like I immediately look at the Matthew 11 where it says, come to me all who are weary and burdened. Because that's like when I read this, come to me all who are thirsty. Like it obviously like isn't just about water. I feel like it's about like my ability to do life, or like what's going on in my life and what's happening in me, you know? And so I'm like, I think when I think about, I'm like, that thirstiness, like it, for me specifically, it feels like weariness. Like, all who are weary, come to me and I will give you rest. And I want to go back to that, what you were saying about invitation, and how this is kind of like the peace that surpasses all understand, like that conversation. Like, there's part of me that feels like this is a supernatural rest, like not just like choosing this life or like choosing this mindset, but like I feel like when I'm weary and burdened, the idea of finding rest feels like Jesus has to do that in me somehow. Like, and so I'm trying to, I think it's more, to me, I think it's a little more than just like choosing that mindset. I feel like there is a moment where I have to like go and say, Jesus, like, I'm really tired and this is beyond me. And I have to physically go into prayer, or like go, not like I have to be in my like quiet space in the corner, but like in the middle of a meeting or in the middle of a day, or, you know, when like things are overwhelming and I do tear up or whatever, like I have to figure out how to go, Jesus, like, I'm really tired right now. Now I will cry. It's fine. I'm fine. But like, but like, I feel like there is a response in that. That's like, not just a check in my mindset, although it is that, but also a like, I need help to get there. Like, I can't do it on my own. And like, that's the verse when I was like looking at Isaiah 40, I'm saying like a lot today. When I was in Isaiah 40, it said, those who hope in the Lord will renew their strength. And I feel like that's a choice that I have to intentionally make. I have to ask for it. I have to intentionally step into it. I have to, like, I just feel like there's an extra layer there. I don't know.
There's like I want rest or peace or these things. There's almost this, one way I understand it is it's almost this like idea of satisfaction. Mm-hmm. And so it's like at the end of a big project, when the work was so hard and you were so exhausted, but then you like look back and you're like, look what was done. Did it. And it's finding that in the work of God. It's like being able to, in the midst of the chaos of life, be able to have perspective and look and be like, I have satisfaction in who God is, who I am, who He's created me to be, how the world, even though it doesn't always feel right, how it does operate, because I have faith and trust in that. Yeah. And the I think like going back to like thirst, and those who are thirsty come and drink, or John 7 says, let anyone who is thirsty come to me and drink. They're writing specifically to a people group whose historical
wandering in a desert.
Like these people may themselves have never been so thirsty that it was provided by God, but they have family history and story of that was the most extreme part of God, like tangibly meeting the need. And so thirst is obviously not just physical thirst, but like what is the need that is just like so immediate, that and God's invitation is us to come to Him in the midst of those moments.
And I think that is the there's the tension there. You know, you talked about the water in the midst of the desert, brings to mind Jesus lying in the boat, in the front of the boat, and the boat's just they're in the middle of the storm, and He's resting, and that is kind of a picture. He invites us to be restored, to to have that thirst addressed, to rest in the middle of the chaos. He doesn't say we're going to take it away and you can go, take your nappy time in a quiet place. Everything's raging around you still. You've got the water in the middle of the desert, so you got you're being replenished with the water, but you're surrounded by no water, arid, So these invitations are something that are held in tension, not like you can like hit pause on life and then go rest and then come back and then hit unpause. Everything just still happens, even though we're being restored, even though we've got, having the thirst addressed.
Yeah. I always think the while the water imagery is so strong in the Bible, I always think it's such a terrible imagery for people that live in Minnesota. Like, what do you mean there's no water?
Yeah.
No water. What are you talking about?
What do you mean?
Yeah.
There's 10,000 lakes.
Come to me, all who are really cold.
Yeah, what are we doing
I
here?
will give you heat.
We have literally the complete opposite weather and experience and everything that people he's actually writing to. And then in Isaiah 55, 8 through 9, I love moments of the Bible where people, it's almost admission of their own struggle, or like things that can be said as prayers.
Yeah.
And I like the my thoughts are not your thoughts, neither are your ways my ways. Like this moment of Isaiah, who was a prophet who everyone of the day would have said is probably the closest to God, has this moment of like, I maybe am not right all the time. And the admission of that to God. And I don't know how do we learn to trust when we don't understand what God is doing? I think is the
I think that, like, going back to what you were saying about the mindset, like, I think there's a lot of choice in there, like choosing to trust and choosing to have faith and increasing that. Like, I just feel like I have to, that in those moments, I feel like I have to make choices about how I'm going to respond. I think, like, in planting a church or in rebuilding a church or whatever that looks like, there's a lot of moments of doubt. That feels very real for me, at least. Feels pretty constant, actually. And I think that, sorry. And I, like, we talk a lot about partnership with God, and like, it's not a don't do anything because, God's our partner or God will do everything. But it's also like trusting that he is leading the way and walking with you, and that he wants us to succeed, or he wants the body of Christ to grow, whether it's, your little corner church or, somebody else's. Like, I think he's walking in that. But in those moments when I feel like, wow, this may not work, having to trust or choosing to trust is super important to me. Even trusting that if it doesn't work, like, that would be okay too.
I think it's easy to say choosing to trust. What does that actually look like? Like, what is the...
I don't know. I can't put words to it. I think it's just...
Well, I think you're very good at it. That's why I was asking.
Well, I think it's because I don't know. I mean, like, I think it's just it's something in my mind that I have to choose. Like, I don't know. I mean, it's like you choosing to find rest or choosing that mindset. Like, I feel like there's
but
just
practically,
a shift.
I think there's this, you go, I don't know, but I'm gonna keep going. I'm gonna do it anyways. That's which is, I mean, I know I have a long list of friends who have gotten to that point of like, I don't know. And it's the same as like in a marriage. If somebody gets to that point and they go, I don't know, and I'm not going to try anymore, it's essentially over. There's nothing you can do about it. But the call of a relationship, call of faith, is to get to that. It's not to avoid the I don't know or avoid the hard, but it's to get to it and go, well, just going to keep doing it.
Yeah, I think
I'm committed to it. It's commitment. Faith is commitment over doubt, or commitment over unknown.
I think that, like, one thing, like, as you were talking, I think that when, like, we talk a lot about processing scripture, and I don't know if we talk as much about meditating on scripture. And that's something that, like, I have been, like, has been on my heart a lot lately, because it isn't necessarily, it is deep processing, but it's also these moments of, like, why in the Old Testament would they make an altar to remind them of what God had done? And, like, there was all these moments where, like, set up, put a stone here, or do this to remind the people what I've done. Because how many times throughout Old Testament do they forget what God has done? Over and over again, they forget what God has done. And there's these reminders. And I think that meditating is an opportunity for us to have these reminders of what God has done and what he's doing. And so, I think that, I don't know, I think that's an important part. I'm not always very good at it, but I also feel like it's something God has kind of been calling me to be better at, because I think that, I don't know, like, sometimes I think I am not the deepest thinker because I go, oh, I'm going to trust God, and I make that choice. And then it's like, that's where I'm going. Like, sorry, a piece of gum in my mouth. I feel like it's almost shallow, but then there's these moments where you go, okay, how am I going to remember? What does trusting in God look like? What is the next steps? What's going to move us forward? I think there's all these pieces to it. And I think sometimes meditating on what he's done helps us move forward.
Yeah, there's all these people throughout the Bible, New Testament, Jesus' life, that he has specific calls and invitations to. And rarely do we see him have the call to the people that we think is probably most deserving.
Yeah.
Which is fascinating. Thank goodness. Unless you think you have it all figured out, then...
And I do not.
Well, then your call looks like the young dude who had it all together. Whatever. But what does that reveal about, like, who Jesus is and what his invitation looks like?
I think that's something that becomes more clear as you do spend time meditating on it. I'm talking about Isaiah 55, 8-9, my thoughts are not your thoughts, my ways are not your ways. But the more time you spend meditating, the more you can kind of maybe comprehend and get a better picture of it. Not to say that you're gonna get you're gonna get the entire picture, but you're at least gonna get, a glimpse of part of it. And I think part of it is, like you're saying, trusting God. It's being okay to say, okay, I've got maybe an inkling of what you're gonna do, but I'm not gonna trust only if it fits my idea. Mm-hmm. I'm gonna trust to say, okay, I think this may be what you're gonna be doing, but do whatever you're gonna do. When you are talking to someone who's an expert in a certain field, you can have just maybe a basic idea, but they've got 40 other things running through their mind that you would never have conceived of, because they're just so well versed in this. So when God acts, he's got all these unlimited options, and we may be like, ooh, it could be one of these 4. Mm-hmm. But God's got 10,000 other possible things, and afterwards you kind of look at it and go, oh wow, that makes sense. Mm-hmm. But you're going, when I had an idea of how this could work out, I just had no concept that it would be the way it went.
Yeah.
But being okay with that's hard, that trust. Mm-hmm. I know before I moved to out east, I was my headspace was, I never ever want to leave Minnesota. I've got a house here, I've got equity, I've got we got a decent yard, and this is a great place. I've grown up here, I love it. But at some point, I felt like God was pushing at me and saying, I want you to, because I was only looking in Minnesota as I was getting ready to graduate from seminary, for a new position, a full-time position. And I want you to be open to other things. So I started praying a prayer. God, if you want this, change my heart.
Yeah.
Which is a hard prayer, because I wanted anything but my heart to be changed. But I'm still praying that and going, okay, I trust you. Change my heart. It was almost like I was saying, change my heart, but don't, if you don't have to. And it was 180-degree change within the next 8 to 12 months. I was just like, wow. I went 180 degrees. I was like, get me out of here, on that, and we ended up, heading out east, but it was hard to engage that. I trust you enough to pray something that I don't want right now.
Yeah.
I was writing kind of the connection moment for Sunday today, this morning, and after reading the notes of our message and stuff, it's just reminded me of there's so much value in doing the thing that makes no sense but is right. It doesn't fit within the picture, and then usually in retrospect, you look back and go, oh yeah, that made a ton of sense. And it's just like, you guys all know the story, but it just reminds me so much of doing this stupid card events with Jody here in Northeast.
Yeah.
Long before Corner Northeast was even a thought in anyone's mind. We just kept doing them. They were bad. No one came. I don't know why we kept doing them. I mean, partly it was just Jody and I had a good time together, and there was something that was like, yeah, you guys should just keep doing this. And so we just kept doing it. And just like looking back now, you're like, oh man, I wish I was that good at planning, planning things. But there's like, I don't know, there's so much importance in those moments of like, if you don't think it's valuable, if it doesn't really make a difference now, if you're unsure of what even the point is, those are the things that God builds his kingdom on. I think those are the things that God builds his body on. And it's just like, if you feel, if you see a need that you can meet and you feel like you're supposed to do it, then just do it.
Yeah.
It's a blind faith moment almost. But I've seen those moments pay off so much. And it's not even like you do it because they're going to pay off. It's just like, in retrospect, you go, oh, that's why we did that. Or that's why. Yeah. I feel like so much of my life is that of like, I don't know, I feel like this is what I'm supposed to do. And I'm just like committed to just doing what I feel like is supposed to be done. And then you look back and you're like, oh yeah, God was writing. Right there. Yeah, he was writing a story the whole time.
Yeah. I love it too, because I think when I think about those moments, like I think that there's also moments where life is kind of falling apart and God still intervenes. Like when I was around 25, like I would say I felt like my life was severely falling apart. And I moved to Seattle, and I had to. Like I knew, like my cousin and I sat in the car, and she's like, "You have to go." I'm like, "I know." And so I moved to Seattle, and I moved in with my aunt and uncle. And it wasn't like because everything was going great. It was because things were really tough. And like living with them gave me so much understanding of like healthy family, and like also just kind of understanding my own brokenness that I wouldn't have known had I stayed right where I was. And it took a few years, but like Mike and I got married and met, and then like coming back to Minnesota when I was pregnant, and I wanted to, I could have been hormonal, like that's what happens. So it could have been that, but I was like, I want to move to Minnesota. And there's many times where I'm like, what was I thinking? Like I loved Seattle. Yeah. I loved Seattle, and Minnesota's cold, and there's sometimes tough moments being like here. There's some like things I came back to that are kind of hard, but like Mike and I just love Minneapolis, and we love where we are, and we feel like, and I, even when I came back here, I went back to the church I grew up in when I was like less than 10 and served the community and was able to build relationships with kids that I still have relationships with. And I don't always know exactly what the beauty is in all of it, but I also, I wouldn't be who I am if like things didn't go wrong. I think if things didn't go wrong to a point where I was like, oh, I have to leave, I wouldn't be who I am. Yeah. And I think that like, that's that whole verse, God works out the good for those who love him. Like it wasn't because I was doing great things and everything was wonderful, but it was because like God works out the tough things and these like tough moments and these beautiful moments and these choices and sometimes forced choices. Like I just keep seeing God working in it. Yeah. And it is beautiful.
Yeah, Isaiah 55, 12 through 13. You will go out in joy and be led forth in peace. This rest, this invitation to come and drink isn't to hide in our houses or build up our church walls or any of these things. It's so that we can go out in joy and be led forth in peace.
That's good. Do you have anything to add? Rich's wrap up? I mean, he kind of did it, but...
I think the idea of no coincidences, we can look back and see all these things, the reason why moving and coming back, the reason why, like you did a coffee cart and sold that drink in 6 months or whatever. Yeah. Like the reason you look back on and you see it because of faith in the moment. Sometimes I have not in my life had a more like audible, very like profound God had a plan that I had no idea about moment until I moved to Kansas. Because I didn't know I was moving to Kansas until my dad said, "Hey, what are you doing in the fall?" And out of my mouth came, "I think I'm going to move down home."
Wow.
Which I had not thought about.
Wow.
Not once, because I like Minnesota a lot. I don't like Kansas. I'm sorry, Dad.
Does anybody?
Which dad stays?
I don't know, man. But that I think that just that the peace that comes in life might not be understood in this moment, but with faith there's no coincidences. It's just how it works.
I like it.
Cool. Thanks, guys. We'll see you next week.
See you.